back, everyone. Today we're going to try something a little bit different with the camera angle. We're doing another assembly. This is a 3D printer that came in, and just go ahead and, you know what? I don't think this camera angle is going to work. Alright, now that we've got that fixed, let's go ahead and take a look at what is inside the box. So we've got some nice foam. This is a Longer 3D printer. The model is LK1. We've got a nice little booklet about what is and isn't here. Looks like it comes with some decent tools as well. So let's go ahead and start getting this out of the foam. I'm going to say right off the bat that they've done a good job with the foam. And here is one section. I'm going to set that over here. I'm going to take this box out of the way. Grab the other piece. I'm just going to toss that out. All right, so it looks like some of this may have been pre-assembled. Let's go ahead and start getting things out of their protective foam. Here looks like there were a couple of binder clips that have popped loose in shipping that secured these two plates to each other. There's a couple there. There's one jammed underneath it. All right. So this is our glass print plate. Hold on to those binder clips. Man, it looks like they put half of this thing together already. All right, and inside this box is probably that list of tools that was included. So we've got some zip ties, a wrench, a tiny slotted screwdriver, a piece of foam, a holder for your filament spool, some included pink filament, okay. Some brackets. You know, it's funny, it came with these super tight tolerance cutters. I just bought a pair like this. And I may go grab those to compare them in a second. We get some Allen keys. We get a pretty typical paint scraper. A flash drive, or sorry, not a flash drive, a USB card reader, and a micro SD card. And whose card did they use? This card has no branding whatsoever. Let's see if I can look this up real quick. This is a China export marked card. Okay, so the serial number on this returns nothing. Not a particularly high-end card. Obviously, it's not marked. But I'm sure it's certainly enough to hold some files for this. Spare parts, looks like we get an extra limit switch included. And a couple of power cables, and a USB cable. So we've got an IEC power cable and a USB Type-B device cable. Very good. Alright, let's go ahead and we get more foam. This is not necessarily my favorite foam, this open cell red foam, but it certainly doesn't seem to be bad either. And I really am just not a huge fan of the color. I don't know why it's dyed like that. But it doesn't want to let go of any of the parts and did a good job protecting them from what I can tell. So let's see if we can tip this up and out. Alright, so we have a vertical component, and then this is going to be our large DC power, and I bet the control unit is in here as well. Oop. Warning, please set the right printer input voltage according to your country's voltage standard. The switch is on the side of the power supply. So there's a fuse on the power supply. There's our USB port. And I'm glad they pointed that out because this unit came preset to 230 volts. We need to set it to 115, which is US voltage. And this thing is assembled with hex screws, and yeah, I'm not going to take that apart right now because I mean, it's a control board. I'm not going to open it and find a Raspberry Pi or something. I'm going to find some Arduino of some sort. So now that I've got everything out, let's go ahead and take a look. Now what we need to do for assembly. Oh, okay. So there's a couple of holes drilled in this. I'll get the vertical frame out of the way for a second. So that's the vertical frame. They consider this the, I guess, frame base. And in the frame base, there are 4 holes that have been pre-drilled. 2, 3, 4. And then there are 4 tapped holes in the bottom of the vertical frame. So this is going to be secured just like that. And let me make sure that's the right way around. That appears to be. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the screws that fit this first and then put them in hand tight. Now they also show these 2 plates. We have a left side fixing plate and a right side fixing plate. The left side plate has a limit switch on it for the vertical motion of the extruder and its stepper motor. The right side plate is just a standard T plate, and there appears to be holes already drilled into the extruded aluminum for those as well. Now, I'm going to say that I'm surprised to see them using holes like that in the extruded aluminum. More traditionally, what I would have expected to find would be that there would be inserts here that I would then have to secure, and maybe, in fact, if I've uploaded it and if you've watched it, when I assembled that CNC laser, that's exactly how it worked. there were pre-drilled, or there were inserts that came with it that you simply grab this and make sure. Yeah, there were inserts with it that you had to slide into the frame and then use those. And what I'm doing right now is I'm just making sure that all 4 of these bolts tighten into the frame. Sometimes when you tap aluminum like this, you get burrs in it, and you can see this one's not going in anywhere near as easily as those top 2. I'm just making sure that these are going to tighten down and not fight with me beforehand. And if I found one that did, which tightening a little hard isn't the end of the world, I could go get a tap and I could clean out the thread, or I can just give it a little bit more torque here and tighten the bolt through whatever burr may be without having the whole assembly in the way at that particular juncture. And it occurs to me that you probably didn't, I guess you probably did see that just fine. All right, so here's those, and I'm going to take the glass plate out of the way. Going to set the vertical frame there for a second. I'm going to tip this on its side. And basically, just kind of line this up here. I'm just going to put these in finger tight at first. And once I have all 4 in, I'll tighten them a little more. I'm not going to tighten these all the way. And the reason that I'm not tightening them in all the way is I have those T-plates to put in. And if one of those T-plates needs just a little bit of a wiggle to line up, I obviously will want that. So this is what I was afraid of. That one doesn't want to start. Wow. Alright, so those are in. So now let's find whatever size key I need for these smaller ones. Appears to be this size. And then we have this. I'm going to stand it up. So this goes right here. So there's that side. And from this point forward, we have the arm for the filament. In fact, we're going to go ahead and install that right now without damaging any of our tubed wiring. Let's go ahead and put this here. So this is actually one that uses the T-rails for, and it just has a pair of nuts that need rotated into the correct position. And then when you go to tighten them, are going to rotate and then grab. And these they show this going back towards the motor. So, I probably should have centered it some. Fortunately, this is one that wouldn't take too much effort to loosen and recenter. So those go in nice and easy, and you just want it tight enough so that when it tries to feed the filament, that it doesn't fall off or move, but you don't need to make it super, super tight. Now, at this point, all my bolts are in, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through, and anything that I didn't fully tighten down, I'm going to make sure is tight, which means I'm going to give a once over to these bolts on the bottom. And then once again, this is aluminum, so I'm sure there's a torque spec for it, but realistically, once it's tight enough that it stops threading in easy with the long end, just give it maybe a quarter turn. Just enough that it snugs up. You don't want to strip out the aluminum threads. Like I said, once it's tight, we're just going to give it about a quarter turn, if that. We're going to repeat the process here. And on the bottom. And then with that out of the way, I'm going to go ahead and give both of my fixing plates just one last snug. And same thing as the bottom. We're just getting them tight enough that they stop spinning easily, using the short end for torque, and then we're going to rotate this around and give each one of these about a quarter turn. You don't want to strip anything, you don't want to bend anything, you don't want to deform anything, but we don't want it to come loose. And now that I'm done with that, before I go to the wiring step, I'm just going to do the same thing with any of these pre-installed nuts and bolts. Just want to make sure nothing's loose, nothing's shipped loose. Oh, there we go there. So those are reverse thread here. Now the ones I'm not going to touch are these here on my plate. Those I'm going to end up having to adjust and tweak when I get to actually printing. So I'm going to have to level out the bed. These, they seem to have done just fine on. So it's really just those that were a touch loose. And honestly, most of those were tight enough that I don't think it would have been an issue. It's really just some of these in the frame which isn't going to move at all that were a little bit looser than I would have liked. So I'll finish going through those off camera. You don't need to see me fiddle with that for 15 minutes. All right, let's look at the wiring. So we have a couple of different wiring harnesses. I've got 2 of these coming from the control box, and then I've got 2 of these big multi-pin connectors that go here. So looks like almost all of them are on this side. This is our big 6-pin one, and that's just going to push in and tighten. This is just our 4-pin, which I'm surprised that's only 4 pins. Same thing, just pushes in, and then it's going to thread down to lock. These are all labeled. X, MOT, E minus. What's this one say? Z, MOT, Y, MOT. So that's our X, Y, and Z motors. X minus, Z minus, E minus, Y minus. These are various limit switches. And if you look on the diagram and some of the components, not all, they are labeled and keyed. So looks like this is your Y motor. This is your X motor. And then we have a Z motor over here. And an E motor. So this is EMOT, is our extruder motor. That's what E means. And then if I look at this harness, it's pretty straightforward that there's the X. X minus is our limit switch. And then E minus is the limit switch here. And then these are going to be Y and Z. So Z minus and Z motor go here. And then these 2 are going to go here. And here. All right, and then from there, it's just cable management. We've got some zip ties, and you're done. That took us maybe 30 minutes. The back page of this reminds you to go through that, indicates how to adjust the machine. Please remove 2 screws, yellow arrowed, otherwise the Z-axis cannot move, and the noise. So, which screws are those? That's these here. So that's just for so are those just shipping? I think those screws are just in for shipping if I'm reading this properly. Because otherwise the stepper motor is going to spin and nothing's going to happen. That is actually impressive that they included bolts in here, or screws I guess they called them, that have no purpose other than locking the machine down for transport. And I am going to say, keep those. Because if you ever move, or anything of that nature, it's probably a solid idea to reinstall these. So, take those out, and basically from this point everything should be free, and there is there's no restrictions. And then here is your print plate, which, I don't know, I feel like they could have done better than a couple of binder clips to hold it in place. It's not a bad solution, but I would have liked something that kind of bolted down, and maybe that's me being just a little biased, but here they are. All right. And then that is it. Beyond that, the bed has leveling screws underneath it, and you're going to need to adjust that. There are instructions here for zeroing out the nozzle. They suggest the nozzle be zeroed basically to the thickness of a piece of paper. And then there's instructions on the control box interface, which is software. They say that the software is included on the micro SD that comes with it. They recommend 2 different pieces of software. There's a longer 3D slicer MSI on the SD card with no need to configure it. And then there is obviously the open source Cura software package, and then they give you instructions on how to set up Cura to know how to use this software. We've used Cura before as a software demo. So with all of that said, I think it is time that I close this out, and I guess I better get printing Benchy. In an odd turn of events, I actually have to thank my wife. She's the one that got this for me. You'll be seeing, assuming that this works out well, lots of 3D printed things soon to come, as I actually had just been looking at 3D printing several components for testing. And as always, I want to thank our patrons, as well as anyone who helps support Pocketables by using our Amazon affiliate links, and Electrix for providing our opening and closing credits. Thank you for watching.